Greetings and shalom. This is Adrian Scott, and welcome to Truth and Testimony, the broadcast. Again, trying a new format here, so hopefully this is all working out well. I have done already an episode of Shekels for Your Thoughts, which is about giants. If you haven't checked that out, it also shows this format, so you can check that out. And I wouldn't be adverse to getting a little bit of feedback on how this looks, how it sounds. Is it worth continuing with this? Maybe if somebody's got some experience, they might have a few recommendations on how I can tweak it to make it as good as it can be. But in the meantime, it is time for another episode of Bible Break. We are going to continue our reading within the book of Genesis, and in this particular case, we're up to chapter 4. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll be looking in a second, I think this is where we start talking about Cain and Abel. So, having said that, I think we should just get right into it. All right, going to get my eyes on here. And I do continue my reading here from my King James Version of the Bible. So Genesis chapter 4. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord, and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived, and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad. And Irad begat Mehujael. And Mehujael begat Methuselah. Or Methusael, sorry. And Methusael begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech. For I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God, said she, hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So this is an interesting chapter to be said. Take my eyes off. So we go back to the beginning of chapter 4 as I start talking about this. And one of the first ideas is that I've always kind of wondered is why was Abel's offering accepted but Cain's was not? Now, to me, what I always thought was the simple answer was that Cain was offering of the animals, right? So basically there was a blood offering effectively going on here. When you read the offerings in Leviticus and whatnot, it often talks about taking the blood of the animal and sprinkling it on the corners of the altars and so on and so forth. And we know from other parts of Scripture, it is told that there's no remission of sin without the shedding of blood. And this directly connects to what Yeshua did. It was the shedding of his blood that was the remission of sin for everyone. Right? Now, when you're just offering your first fruits of the grain and of your barley harvest and all of these things, those are good, but they don't serve a full picture. Most of those things often were part of a peace offering or a guilt offering or a voluntary offering. Not limited, there's exceptions to all of this, and I am not an expert in the types of offerings that were performed, but there is an idea that like the Passover sacrifice for one, I mean that's such a significant one, that's an animal. It has a grain portion to it, but it is an animal offering of the lamb. So it kind of connects to that idea of what Abel was offering was a shadow picture of the blood of the animal slain being an atonement or showing an atonement, right? Because now at this point Adam and Eve have already fallen and they killed the animal to make skins for themselves. And I think that's kind of the first picture of that. So this continues that, but Cain only brought a grain offering. So what he brought was not sufficient. Now this ties into all these other concepts of stuff where we didn't get the law until Mount Sinai later on in the future. So at this point, we did not have a prescribed law of how to do things. But I still think there was a proper way to do it in the eyes of God. And even if it hadn't been written down in the form of the Torah yet, that I think people, even before the Torah was given or the law was given at Mount Sinai, still knew. So that's kind of my explanation on that one. I don't know for sure, but that's my opinion on it. But I do find that interesting. And then actually just right back at the very beginning of the chapter, there's this idea of Adam knew Eve, his wife. Now, I think I actually did a video previously talking about this, that there's different kinds of knowing. And there's an intimate knowing, which implies a sexual component to it. And there's almost a funny narrative where, who was it? I think it was it Jacob? Isaac or Jacob? One of those two. And the king of the land saw him with his wife, and it has some passage about how they were frolicking around or they were playing. And it makes it sound like they were playing a game of soccer or something. But, he was wroth because they had lied that she was not his wife for fear that there would be retribution against him. And when the king witnessed this, playing soccer in the field, he realized that they were husband and wife. So that is the evidence right there that particular knowing, when it says, I think it was Isaac, when Isaac knew his wife, that it was obvious that they were husband and wife. So it's just that's an interesting concept of Adam knew Eve. It also ties into another idea where it talks about where, this is a big question that came up, where did Cain get his wife? Right? So you have Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. Abel is now dead. Where did Cain get his wife? If they're the only people, they try to argue that this is proof that the narrative is not true. But as you read on, it talks, actually I think in this chapter, does it not? Indeed it does. Down in verse 25, when it says, and Adam knew his wife again. They had more children. Now, this gets into a whole other thing because we talk about, brothers and sisters getting together, and that's gross and it's illegal in most areas and stuff like that. But you got to keep in mind, back at this point, I think, and again, this is my opinion, that the further back you go, the cleaner the gene pool. The main ip with siblings getting together now is genetically it causes too many problems. There's enough errors in the DNA that if a brother and sister are intimate or close relatives are intimate like that, the resulted child that can come of that will usually have either very serious mental or physical problems if they're born at all. It can often be a miscarriage or other things like that. But I make the case that back then, the genes, the genetics were closer, much closer to pure. And so you didn't have that degradation. You didn't have that risk of causing problems having close relatives get together. Plus, I mean, there just wasn't that many people. It takes a while to repopulate. Same thing would have happened at the time of Noah and his family. I mean, now you've only got a small handful of people that effectively need to repopulate the planet. And in fact, is that not the instruction from the Creator, right? Go forth, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Well, you can't do that unless you're within your own family when you only have 8 of you getting off a boat, or when you only have a half dozen of you, or whatever the case may be back at the time of Adam and Eve. So yeah, that's a big one there. There's not too much more I'm going to talk about in that chapter. There's some other things that might actually be a part of a different video I'm going to do, but we'll save the interesting stuff is over the next 2 chapters. So you're definitely going to want to check out chapter 5 and chapter 6 when we do get to those. In the meantime, I'm going to wrap this one up here, and I will say blessings to all of you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus our Lord. And I say have a great week, and shalom, and bye for now.